Hello friends, my name is TheRealEmile. I do want to quickly apologise for not having this up earlier. It's supposed to go up on Thursday, it's going to go up on Saturday. I do apologise, but I haven't really had time to record these Top Gear laps, so that's why it's a bit late. Anyway, today's theme is something I'm going to call the best of the rest. Now what this is basically we're wrapping up the Top Gear laps this week. We're actually going to wrap it up on Monday with a part 2 to this. But in the first part, I figured I'd just throw all of the cars around that we haven't thrown around yet that I was genuinely interested to see what they could do on the track. The first car to go was the Bugatti Veyron SS. This thing has 1,182 horsepower, but it does weigh 4,043 pounds. Now, the Veyron, to anyone who's ever tried to drive this car in Forza, you will know this thing has some ridiculous straight line speed. Even if you know nothing about cars really, you know the Bugatti Veyron and you know this is a extremely fast car. I believe this is still the fastest car in the world. I don't think that Venom has officially beaten it yet. But it is insanely quick, and the four-wheel drive means you can get it out of corners. As soon as you boot it, it's kind of like in the Venom. As soon as you boot it, you basically get warp speed. And that's what it really feels like with a Veyron. The downside to the Veyron is, well, it's so fast and the brakes aren't very good. Like, you have to brake so unbelievably early for corners. For Hammerhead, you're braking so early. Because you need to, otherwise the car will just run off. The other issue with this car is humongous amounts of understeer. But this is because it weighs a ridiculous amount, it has a ridiculous amount of power. And having not very good brakes and a lot of understeer isn't very conclusive to having a good lap time around here. However, hopefully the huge amount of speed should make up for that. Now we have a bit of an opposite of a hypercar. This is the Lamborghini Veneno. This has 740 horsepower and weighs 3,219 pounds. Now the Veneno is a completely different animal to the Veyron. This car doesn't feel quite as quick in a straight line. Obviously it's hugely fast. It's got 740 horsepower and a top speed of over 210 miles an hour. But the Veneno compared to the Veyron doesn't feel very quick. However, this car is absolutely gorgeous through the corners. It's honestly one of the best handling cars in this game. You can take so much speed into the corners, it won't slide, and even if it starts sliding you can just boot it because it's four-wheel drive and it will go in the direction you show it. Yeah, you can boot this thing flat out throughout corners, it's insane. Through the Hammerhead, this is one of the fastest cars we've had. I believe it's doing about 110 through there. Which is hugely quick for a car around here. The Veneno also has excellent brakes, it doesn't have any understeer, and it's got four-wheel drive so you can boot it out of everywhere. In short, this is the absolute perfect hypercar in my opinion, at least in case of driving. Next up we have a bit of a slower car, but not exactly a less dramatic Lamborghini. This is the Lamborghini Reventon. Or Rebenton, I believe you're supposed to say it like that. 641 horsepower, 4,068 pounds of weight. This is basically a rebodied Lamborghini Murcielago LP640. And I was kind of curious to see how this could do around the track. Traditionally, Lamborghinis have done very well around this track. The Aventador is one of the fastest cars we've had around here, and that's only an A-class car. And the Veneno was very quick as well. So I kind of wanted to see how the Reventon would do. Unfortunately, the Reventon does slide a lot. It does feel quite a bit like the Audi R8 V10, just many more times heavier than the R8 V10. It does have more power than the R8, so it is quicker, but it does slide, and it's not a very nice car to drive. Also, the cockpit camera, or the interior view on this car, is messed up. For some reason, you are literally in the door card, which can make this a very weird sort of driving experience if you use interior view like I do, and I imagine most of you guys probably do. But the Reventon did have four-wheel drive. It was relatively fast, so it wasn't terrible. But I have definitely driven better four-wheel drive cars. Now, the Koenigsegg Agera, 940 horsepower, 3,164 pounds. I have spoke about the Agera many times. This is my favourite hypercar in the world. I love it because it's just completely mad. It looks awesome, it's mad, it's mental. It does have rear wheel drive. For a hypercar, that does mean you keep the weight down. However, it doesn't mean applying the power to the road is quite as nice as it would be in a four-wheel drive car. This kind of drives like the Venom, but a lot better than the Venom. Basically, for those of you who didn't watch that episode, I believe it's the American Cars episode, we threw the Hennessy Venom round. And that car had huge amounts of speed. It is the fastest thing in this game, I believe. But it's just so hard to get the power down on the road. You have to be so ridiculously careful through the corners. So it wasn't ridiculously fast. The Agera has a similar problem. However, you're not putting as much power down on the road, so it doesn't have as much speed as the Venom. But at the same time, it does handle quite a bit better than the Venom. So it is actually drivable. Not by much, but it is indeed drivable. Anyway, from a scary Swedish hypercar to a Ferrari F50 with 513 horsepower and 2,712 pounds of weight. This was the surprise of the night, just because this thing handled so beautifully. This really is one of the best handling cars I've driven in Forza. I loved driving the F50 round. It was so smooth. It didn't feel very fast because I had just got out of the Agera. But my god, this thing drives so nicely. There's so much grip in it, it feels controlled. The brakes are excellent in this car. You can actually brake almost at the 50-meter board, which is something you can't usually do in any form of supercar. That's usually reserved for the hot hatches. The F50 will, if you're very, very hard on the brakes, will pull up there. I decided to brake a bit earlier than that, but yeah. The F50 is excellent. Through Hammerhead, it could take so much speed. The only real complaint I have about this car is the gear ratios are fairly long. It will do 60 in first gear, I believe. So, I don't think I actually got this out of 4th gear. I did throw it in 5th on some practice runs, but it's just much easier to sort of throw it in 4th gear. But it didn't have as bad a problem as the McLaren F1, and it was a very, very nice car to drive, that F50. Certainly give that one a go. I've tried some race versions of them, and they all handle fantastically. Next up, we have a Ferrari 599 GTO, 661 horsepower, and it weighs 3,538 pounds. I was kind of curious to see how the 599 GTO would do, as we get a huge tail slide through there. We had a Corvette ZR1 round, and that was a very quick car. And I kind of wanted to see how this would do, because it's a similar sort of thing to the ZR1, and this actually handles more like a Corvette should than the ZR1 did. This thing is very slidey, very, very slidey indeed. It does not take any encouragement to go sideways. However, this really did surprise me. It doesn't even feel that quick. Sure, it is a very quick car. I believe it's top-ish of A-class. So it has got a fair amount of speed in it and whatnot. But it didn't feel exceptionally fast compared to the A-class cars. However, this car is scary for reasons we will get onto when I show you the lap board, because this thing genuinely surprised me with how quick this car is around this track. And it doesn't feel like that. So yeah, the 599 GTO, not a very nice car to drive, but you'll have to wait and see until later on to see how awesome that car was. Next up, similar sort of thing. I kind of wanted to see how these two would compare. This is a Mercedes-Benz SLS. It has 571 horsepower and weighs 3,571 pounds. I believe that's about the same as the 599 GTO. Now, obviously, this car's down on power. I'm not expecting it to sort of rival the 599 GTO. But again, this is another one that's kind of like a Corvette almost. You know, front engine, rear drive, lots of power. So I did kind of want to see how this car would compare to the Corvette as well. The SLS, it's a slidey car, you know. Yeah, for those of you who've watched Top Gear and Jeremy Clarkson go on about this car and drive it in America and so on, you'll know this isn't the nicest car in the world to drive. However, I do quite like the SLS. I prefer this over the 458 Italia. It was actually nicer to drive around here than a 458 Italia as well, if you can believe that. It makes a fantastic engine noise. It's a pretty good car. The brakes are fairly solid. The handling... Yeah, as I said, it is slidey. You can get this thing sideways very easily. It doesn't handle that much differently to the 599 GTO. But it is a fairly alright car to drive. I mean, yeah, the SLS was pretty okay. So yeah, that's sort of what I've got to say about the SLS. And finally today, we have the Audi RS4 Avant. I'm not going to say Advant. Someone got angry at me last time for saying that. Anyway, this has 444 horsepower and weighs 3,957 pounds. Now, if you ask me what car everyone in the world should drive, I would probably reply with this, because this is just my idea of the absolute perfect car for everyone in the world. It's got loads of space in it, it's got a big V8, so it's fast. It's got four-wheel drive modes, so you can kind of do a bit of sort of field hopping in it, I guess. Yeah, this RS4 is fantastic. I love it. I think it also looks fantastic as well. But of course, looking fantastic and being fantastic in reality and on paper is one thing, but how's this thing to drive? Well, I'm pleased to say it's absolutely fantastic. The RS4, I had a B-class one of these, top of B-class, and it was one of the greatest handling cars I've ever driven in Forza, and to be honest with you, from stock this car's pretty good. There is some understeer, it is noticeable, but it's nowhere near as bad as it is in the Veyron, and even the Reventon and stuff like that. Yeah, the RS4 is a very nice car to drive around here. We have had an RS4 around before, it was the slightly older model to this, so I was kind of interested to see how those two would compare. And there you go, cross line. Anyway, onto the lap time, and the Veneno goes into second place with a 1:11.724, which is very, very quick. That actually beats out the Bugatti Veyron SS, which is in third with a 1:22.390. I've got to say, for the way the Veyron drives and everything, that is actually really, really impressive. I was sort of expecting the Venom to, and that sort of maybe share space on the board. But they didn't. That was a fairly respectable lap time from the Veyron. The Koenigsegg Agera goes into 8th with a 1:13.986, beating a Bugatti Veyron and a Maserati MC12 and a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, the Agera, it could use a bit more grip, I'm going to be honest, but I'm still quite proud that it did that well. Anyway, on to the big surprise time-wise of the day, and the Ferrari 599 GTO goes into 13th with a 1:15.853. That is insane. That's almost as quick as an Enzo, and that costs 4 times more, by the way. It beats a Celine S7, a McLaren MP412C, an Aston Martin 177, a McLaren F1. That car is ridiculously quick. Speaking of ridiculously quick, though, in 19th we found the Ferrari F50, 1:17.28. That beats a Viper ACR, 458 Italia. That car's very quick. It's super grippy. It's fantastic to drive. It's like the F40. They're just brilliant cars. Going down the board some more, we find the Reventon in 24th with a 1:17.973. Just being beaten by an F12 Berlinetta, but it does beat an R8 V10 and a GTR. Yeah, the Reventon, if it handled a bit better, it could be very much towards the top. And the SLS AMG goes into 29th with 1:18.390, with an SL65 Black just underneath it, Ferrari FF RS200. That's actually really good for the SLS. That's, yeah, very impressive. And as we go down the board, we find the RS4 in 51st with a 1:21.762. That's not actually too far off an RS7 Sportback, which is pretty impressive. It beats a Chimera ZL1, which is a fantastic handling car, a Lotus Exige, BMW M5. Yeah, that car was very impressive. Anyway, I want to thank you all very much for watching. Join me on Monday for part 2 of this, where we'll even have some serious contenders for the top of our board. Anyway, I want to thank you all very much for watching. My name's been TheRealEmile. Until next time, farewell.